Most of you have spent your career in corporate America, and the skills you've gained over your career are incredibly valuable. Unfortunately, many nonprofits can't afford to pay professional services such as organizational strategy, change management, project management, and a lot of the other skill sets that you all have. Because of the cost of doing this, often it's left on the nonprofit's to-do list while they focus on other mission-critical work. Patina's teamed up with an organization called Catch a Fire to provide members with skill-based approach to giving back. Catch a Fire's mission is to provide talented individuals with meaningful pro bono experiences in order to build capacity for social good organizations. Joining us today is Marissa, Catch a Fire's Director of Nonprofit Program Development. Marissa oversees curriculum and advisory services for nonprofit professionals and skilled-based volunteers. Previously, she worked as a project management consultant for tech companies, helping to improve recruiting and hiring practices and specializing in equity and inclusion. I'm going to turn the event over to Marissa to have her share with us opportunities to work with their organization.
All right, hi everybody. That is a very large picture of my face. I am going to actually share my screen, so bear with me. All right, slightly smaller picture of my face. So welcome everyone. I'm so excited to speak with all of you. You are exactly the population that is so helpful to our organizations on Catch a Fire. I'm going to walk you through exactly what we do at Catch a Fire and actually show you what it's like to start working with an organization. As we talk through these things, please feel free to throw questions into the Q&A. I have my colleague Nehemiah on the line, and Nehemiah is one of our advisors for our nonprofits. Hi, Nehemiah. And he is a senior associate of nonprofit engagement, and he could probably answer every single thing you can come up with. He'll leave questions that seem like they're kind of helpful for everyone, but if you have a specific question that is useful just to you, he'll answer on the line as we go. So just to give you a background on Catch a Fire, I think Jessica did a great job kind of explaining what we do, but essentially we sit at the intersection between nonprofits and professionals like yourselves who want to give back in a skills-based way. And I want to really make sure that everyone feels comfortable with that concept of skills-based volunteering. Essentially, when we usually think of volunteering, a lot of what we think of is that hands-on work, like I'm going to a soup kitchen, I'm going to serve food, I'm going to organize a pantry, I'm going to paint a fence. And all of this work is extremely important to nonprofit organizations. They need this help in order to get their work done and serve the people that they are serving as an organization. But what I know I found when I was working for a nonprofit organization is while a lot of those tasks could get done and many people could accomplish those tasks, there were things that I needed as a nonprofit professional and that my organization needed that would help us run more smoothly, help us make more strategic decisions that I really wasn't able to figure out how to get that help. And that's where Catch a Fire really comes in. The goal is to make sure that nonprofits' professional needs are being met, just like the work that they're doing to help the populations that they serve, just like you're helping those people. And so what we do as an organization is really make sure that we are helping you to scope out the problems with the organization, to figure out exactly what it is that they need help with. So I'm sure that some of you on the line have done some consulting work over the past or have given advice to organizations or companies. And I think the hardest part of working with a company or an organization is them just identifying what they need help with. I know it was pretty often that we would work with consultants who would come in and they would ask what we needed and we would say we needed something and then slowly it would become pretty clear that we needed something else, or we'd end up in a lot of scope creep where we really needed them to help us with multiple problems. So Catch-A-Fire's philosophy is really to be transparent and upfront and help organizations identify their needs from the beginning so that you as a volunteer know exactly what you're working on, because your time is extremely valuable, just like our organization's time is extremely valuable. So we want to make sure that you're able to help with some of that strategic work, those big meaty projects, but that you're only doing the work that you have agreed upon with the organization so they get exactly what they need. So we do this in a few ways, but the two main ways that I would look at with Catch-A-Fire is we have 1 hour phone calls, which are exactly what it says in the box, right? It is spending 1 hour on the phone with a nonprofit professional. A lot of times they are executive directors, they are directors of communication or operations or directors of outreach. They could be anyone within an organization, and just being a sounding board that is not related to their organization that can help them work through problems. So just bouncing those ideas, if you come from an HR background, for example, and they're really running into challenges of like, how do I reorganize my team? We finally are able to hire new people and I don't know how to start. And just helping them to break down the problems into more manageable pieces, giving them advice or recommendations. They just want someone who's another professional like them, but who comes from a different area and background that they could just bounce ideas off of. The other way to connect with our organizations is through our full-length projects, and we'll go into those in a little bit more detail. But essentially, full-length projects are anything from 5 to 50 hours of commitment. It is a one-time commitment that you are making for that organization to complete a very specific project that you've agreed on. And then afterwards, it's up to you how involved you want to remain with the organization. If you want to eventually join their board, if you want to become a part of an advisory group for them, if you just want to, check in on their newsletters every once in a while, so that you have ways to stay in touch with these organizations. Now, I'm actually going to show you what my account looks like, so this will be fun. This is my profile as a volunteer, and you can see that I've been working on a few human resources calls. I've done an organizational strategy call for an organization that was sponsored by Patagonia, and I'm currently working with on a hiring strategy for NYC Medics, who is their sponsorship is through VIA Community. So a lot of organizations, actually more than 95% of the organizations that we work with, are being sponsored by a foundation or a company who basically says, we are going to help make sure you have access to this platform. And then they feel like they have something at stake to make sure that they're keeping these relationships and commitments with you. So if I scroll up and look at the top of my screen, one of the first things that I'm going to see is the total impact, the amount of money that I have saved organizations by just having a few phone calls. Now you can actually click in and see where this comes from. We have a whole blog post explaining how we calculate this number. But the reason I want to show it to you is to really emphasize that for us at Catch-A-Fire, we really want the organizations to know that this time is important on both sides. This commitment that you're making to each other is something that they'd normally be paying for, that you would normally get paid for, so that you can show externally, hey, this is the amount of money that I am helping to save for organizations, and that they can say, this time that I spent was really valuable because this is what it saved me. Now, I'm actually going to click in over here to find a project. Now, in order to go to Catch-A-Fire, all you have to do is go to www.catchafire.org. It's just catchafire.org, super simple. And once you get there, there are two things you can do. You can either go ahead and register and do that from the beginning, or you can just click over here at that Find a Project button without logging in, and you can just explore a little bit. My recommendation would be to set up your account, and that's because it'll actually let you preset some of these searches so that you can always come in and save yourself time. You know exactly what's available for you. So right now, I can see that I have 91 opportunities. When I opened this window this morning, there were 93. So clearly, they're changing every day. They're switching around and adjusting. Now, I can choose all the causes that I'm interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and click into all of them. And I can see, oh, now we're at 92. So I can see all the different causes. So you can choose ones that particularly resonate with you and are interesting to you. I can also choose the skills that I feel comfortable offering up to an organization. Now, these are ones that maybe you feel like an expert in, or maybe, I don't know, on the side, you realize you've actually been doing quite a bit of work in your experience in this area. So I'm going to click in and look at a lot of different things. I can see that there's very specific ones like strategy consulting, which I highly recommend is something that people look into. You're going to see all your major strategic projects if you click in on that one. And I can also see that I can choose a length. So if you are in a situation right now where maybe you are working full time and then some, you've got a lot of obligations, you don't feel comfortable committing to a full length project, that's absolutely fine. Organizations still need your help. You can choose to only work on 1 hour phone calls. If you're looking for more of a relationship with your nonprofits, if you're looking to maybe get to a point where you could be on their board, maybe get to a point where there could be a larger relationship, full-length projects might be the way to go. So just choose the one that's right for you. There's no choice that is better or worse for the organizations. It's just a different way of helping. Now, if I look in here and see what the different options are for me, I can see already there's an organizational strategy call for the Family Community Life Center, and they're looking for strategic advice on growth strategy as they start to expand their workforce, which is kind of funny because it's exactly what I was just talking about earlier. Looks like there's somebody looking for revenue generation plan. There's a lot of need right now for people who have board experience and can help with board recruitment or strategy for how to run their boards. I can see anything around recruiting, employee reviews, compensation plans, and this is just based off of the projects that I chose that I would be interested in. So there's a lot of different areas. You'll also find a lot if you look into finance, for example. There's so many people just looking for an hour on the phone with somebody who knows something about finance. I would say it's important to understand that these organizations are going to be at any stage in their life cycle. So about 45% of our organizations are very small. They're going to be anywhere from 5 or 6 staff members to entirely volunteer run. And these organizations usually don't get a high level of exposure. So everything that you do for them, if you only have a couple of staff members, you have to assume that not all of them are going to be experts in things like marketing, for example. Like I was just in LA meeting with some grantees of the Annenberg Foundation. I don't know if there's any West Coasters on the line, but the organizations are phenomenal. They're working with CNN Hero organizations. They've got some really amazing, great organizations that they're working with. And I asked them in the room, there are about 60 people in the room, and I said, how many of you have someone at your organization who is a designated person to handle marketing? 2 people raised their hands, right? So like these are fantastic organizations that do really good work, and only 2 of them have people who handle any marketing for them. They're just grasping at straws. And that's a really hard place to be in. So every little piece of information that you can give them, any opportunity that you can take while you're working with an organization to teach them, to potentially help them become more self-sufficient and less reliant on a volunteer in the future, is actually really beneficial to that organization, has a resounding impact as they go. And the same could be said for some of the larger organizations that we work with. So you'll see, for example, a lot of American Cancer Society posts. We have hundreds of American Cancer Society employees on our site who are posting regularly. For them, it's a little different, right? Because they have the basic fundamentals of marketing. But what you'll find instead are a lot of people who are trying to move into more strategic work within the organization. They're trying to make a larger impact within the work that they do. And maybe they're looking for something like a leadership coach to help them get to the next level. And if you're helping somebody with great talent move up in the world of nonprofits and they have a larger impact as they go on the organizations, that's a huge impact to be able to make. On just one person really means you're making a larger impact on the organization itself and hopefully on the nonprofit community as people start to move within different organizations. So actually what we're gonna do is let's pick one of these and we'll see what's going on with this organization. So let's pick one of those American Cancer Society posts. We've got one, it's specifically in their volunteer engagement department. And I'm going to show you this post. Just know that all of these posts are going to look just like this. So this is Kyra. She is the Senior Volunteer Recognition Manager. Actually, I know who Kyra is. She's very well known within the organization. She's kind of that rising star within American Cancer Society. And she is looking for somebody to help her with market analysis. So one of the first things you'll see is that number again, right, of how much money it's saving the organization. And it says, what's it going to do for the organization? So saving almost $11,000, they're going to put that money towards free rides to cancer patients to get to medical appointments, physical therapy appointments, things like that. That makes a really big difference on the individuals that they serve. So you can see exactly what that money that is being saved by the organization, what they're going to do with it. The next thing I can see is all the project details. And you're going to see this for every single project you apply for. It's going to say exactly what is expected of you as that volunteer. So in this case, they're looking for a real analysis of the organization's position in the community it serves. It's looking for somebody to provide a summary of strengths and weaknesses, looks like a little bit of a SWOT analysis, a summary of competitors. So we're looking at a full SWOT analysis of the market. And so it says that they've already got some resources, and the project is important because it's going to help ACS define recognition strategies that retain volunteers. So it looks like they're looking at their position compared to other organizations that are having volunteers. They want to understand what the ecosystem is. This is actually a really cool project. I hadn't even clicked on it before, but you are really helping American Cancer Society determine what direction should they go in when they're looking at their volunteers. How should we retain volunteers because of how everybody else is doing things? And that's a really big impact to make on a national organization. Now, in order to apply for this role, you'll see that there's a little bit of prerequisites. Now, the people on this line, I know all of you have some really amazing careers. You probably come with an amazing amount of experience that our organizations are really looking for. But sometimes they're going to look for really specific things that may or may not be the right fit for you. So it's going to want to know that, like, you know how to conduct research, you're a great writer, that you have experience with business development or marketing. Sometimes they're going to be really basic. Just make sure that you definitely qualify for those things so you're not wasting your time. It's also going to say that you work remotely from anywhere. Every single project right now is going to say that you can work remotely from anywhere. And that's because all projects can be done entirely online or over the phone. You do not need to be in person for any project that you do on Catch a Fire. If you happen to be in an area where there are volunteers, there are nonprofits right near you, by all means, please go ahead. You can show up in person and work that out with them. But we really want to encourage you to look at volunteer opportunities outside of your immediate community as well, because there are a lot of areas that have unequal access to talent. And for us, that's just fundamentally unfair for a nonprofit, right? Just because an organization is like us in the middle of New York City, they might have some great access to talent, but we also work with organizations, for example, in very rural parts of Hawaii. And they say quite often to us, and part of the reason that these organizations are on the platform is they say, it's really hard to find talent in this rural space of Hawaii. People leave the island at a very fast rate after they graduate from college, and they don't come back to the island. And they have a hard time finding certain professional talents. So I would definitely encourage you to look outside of your network of space and see what other options are available to you. I can also see in here that I'm looking at a 30 to 50 hour commitment over somewhere around 5 to 8 weeks. Now, we calculate this based on past experience. So this is other volunteers have taken about this amount of time. But really, it's going to be up to you and the organization to determine if this is accurate. So you're going to want to discuss with the organization, hey, does this seem realistic? Actually, I think it's going to take you guys more time because you don't have anything set up. Or, you know what, I can do this faster. Let me figure this out. So you want to make sure you're being really open and upfront with the organizations, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're committing to more than you can handle, because then nobody wins, or where you're under committing. And in fact, you want to provide more, and then you feel a little stuck at the end. Now, one of the things that you're going to see quite often is this little piece over here that says project may require a short interview with the organization. Now, for most opportunities on our site, most projects, you are going to be asked to interview with the nonprofit that is interested in working with you. Now, this is a benefit to both of you. This is an opportunity for both sides to come together and determine, is this actually going to work? Are we in a space right now where we can both work together and this is a good match? Then that's fantastic. Go for it. You can work together. But it's also a chance for you to say, I'm going to be in Europe for 2 weeks and I'm unavailable. Things like that. So I would say definitely use an interview as an opportunity. I'll show you what the application process looks like. It's actually really fast to do. And I can see that James has a question for me and I'm going to answer that in just a minute, James. So hold tight. I'm going to click this button that says apply now. And actually things are pretty quick when you decide that you want to apply for things. So I would recommend applying to a couple projects at a time, just because it's going to take some time for the right person to match with you. You want to make sure that you always have some opportunities coming up. Now I can see those same prerequisites that we talked about earlier. And all of these things, my profile picture and my short biography, those have already been filled out. Once you've done it once, they're good to go and you don't have to keep doing it unless you want to. You can also import your experience from LinkedIn. I do it because frankly, it's a lot easier than typing in all my experience. So if you have an active LinkedIn account, which you all should, go ahead and import that experience, and then you can add and edit for as much detail as you feel comfortable having here. Your profile, once you start matching, can be Google searched, which is always a question I get. Your last name will not show up. It just says, like, for James, who is asking me questions right now, it would just say James C, and it wouldn't put his last name. So you can go ahead and do that. The other thing that you're going to see here is a website or portfolio link. So if you do any sort of work that is, let's say, like you have created websites and you want to show that portfolio, if you have a personal website and you want to show that off, anything that you think is important for an organization when making a decision, go ahead and add those in. The next thing that you're going to see, and this is the last stage of the application process, is you just answer 2 questions. One is, why are you qualified to work on this project? And the second is, why are you passionate about this cause? And that's all you have to answer. It's a short amount of space, so you don't have to write an essay, but be really thoughtful in what you write. The organizations know that the time that you're giving is important, and they don't take it lightly. But at the same time, we want to offer organizations choice. If any of you are familiar with how nonprofits work, a lot of choice is taken away from nonprofits. So things like they're applying for funding, and that funding is earmarked only for a very specific program that they're working on. Or they, get volunteers, but the volunteers just show up and they don't get to choose. There's a lot of situations where choices are made for them, and that can make things really challenging for an organization, who's just trying to innovate and grow and do the best possible job. So, grant them this, they really want to make the choice. And so what they're going to do is do that interview. They're going to look at your qualifications. Yes, your resume might share your qualifications already. So if you're linking to your LinkedIn profile, that's great. But if you just want to say a few words of like, I've been in this space for about 25 years, I've been at XYZ level, and these are the types of strategic problems that I have helped to fix. That's really helpful for an organization that might not necessarily know some of the terminology of the work that you do. When you're talking about the cause and why you're passionate about it, sometimes you won't be, and that's completely okay. And you can be honest of like, here's why it interests me. Or you might have a very particular personal and unique story to why you want to work on this cause. And it's absolutely fine to honestly get rejected from these things. You will, and every volunteer that we work with gets rejected at some point from multiple projects. And that's because every organization has very different reasons for choosing who they want to work with. So for some organizations, that level of experience is the most important thing to them. That if you come from a background where you have done change management, for example, which is a huge need on our platform, the fact that you have led all of these major changes for an organization where you've worked, that's all they need to know. But for some other organizations, it's just as important, if not more important, that you understand them, that you get their cause, that they don't have to teach you about the population that they serve. And it is completely okay for them to choose one or the other. And so please don't feel deterred or you're dejected if you're not getting people saying yes right away. You might have just found people who are looking for more qualifications, less qualifications, more passion, less passion, who knows? There's a million different reasons why somebody would choose to work with you. If you feel like I've been turning in all these applications and no one's saying yes, what's going on? You don't know why, there's an email address that you can message anytime you need anything. And they are real human beings like myself and Nehemiah who will help you out. And that email address is help@catchafire.org. And Nehemiah's just put it in the chat. It's help@catchafire.org. Please send us an email if you're getting stuck. Your talents are crucial to these organizations. We don't want them to be wasted. So we will help you if you're getting stuck on your applications and it's not quite working. Now, I had a question come in from James that I want to answer because I think it's really important. It's something we always want to make sure that everyone understands. And he's looking to understand Catch a Fire and our business model and how we find funding. So Catch a Fire is in a unique situation. We're actually not a nonprofit. We are a B Corp. So we are a public business corporation. We are a certified B Corp. And what that means is we are a mission-driven, technically for-profit company. And so what we do is we reinvest all of our money into our technology in order to further our mission. And so it allows us to not compete with our nonprofits for funding, which is a huge problem that can come up in the volunteer space and we don't want to do. So our funding mostly comes from foundations or companies that sponsor nonprofits to have access to these memberships. And the nonprofits also get access to one-on-one consultation time with nonprofit advisors. They get consulting just within the Catch a Fire space as well. And then they get educational opportunities. They have their own sets of webinars and learning opportunities for things like, how do I work with a designer? I don't actually know. I don't know the language. I don't know what is okay or not okay to talk to them about. And so we do all of that work with them separately. And so that's where the majority of funding comes in. It is possible for an organization to pay and use Catch a Fire. We don't really do much to encourage that. I think it's like 3% of our user population. But that's because we don't want to take away the option from an organization that might be too small to receive nonprofit funding. And so if they want to find another sponsor of some kind, we want them to feel like they have some kind of skin in the game so that you get a good experience too, because both of our audiences, nonprofit professionals and volunteers, are extremely important to us that you have a good experience. So I want to take you through and show you what it actually looks like when you are a volunteer and you work with Catch a Fire. So this is Big Picture Alliance. They are out of Philadelphia, if we have any Philly folks in the room. There's actually a huge number of Philly organizations and New Jersey organizations on our platform right now, which is really fun. So Big Picture Alliance, this was their original website, right? Very straight to the point. They've got a lot of text. I'm not entirely sure what these tags are for on here, but you know, it gets the job done, right? And so we have a amazing user who came in and said, you know what, I want them to be more professional. I want them to be seen externally as something more than what's being seen on their site right now. And she put together this really phenomenal website that really makes it easy to donate, which is extremely important for an organization's website. But the other thing that it did, just one small change to their cover of their website, was it allowed people to feel more comfortable hiring their students, getting a job at Big Picture Alliance. It ended up having far-reaching consequences for just a website facelift. And this was all from one person who then put this into her portfolio. Because a lot of the organizations and companies that she worked with, she was signing non-disclosures. She wasn't allowed to feature anything in her portfolio, and this allowed her to feature something. Now, this is Bob. Bob lives in New Jersey. Bob has a German Shepherd. He runs marathons. He's got 2 kids. Bob's pretty cool. We've met Bob a couple times. Bob has already raised more than $62,000 of impact for organizations. And this is just in the past, I think like 1.5 years, 2 years that he's been on our platform. And he does it entirely in between meetings. He was just looking for another way to help. He used to volunteer at a pantry and soup kitchen. And he just kept saying, like, this isn't, anyone could be doing this. This isn't something that only I can do. And so he really shifted his mindset on volunteering. And mind you, he still helps at that same pantry and food bank. But now he looked at a talent that he really has, which is helping with messaging. And he now coaches organizations on how to create and pitch about their organizations. So he goes in, and every time he finishes one project, he starts a new one. He just always has a continuous project going on. And he has built up this network of nonprofit professionals who are references for him, who are amazing testimonies of what he does well. And so he's been helping with brand messaging. He's been helping with donor letters. These are things that seem like they should be very simple and quick. But in reality, they are all really fantastic, huge impacts on the organizations. So like, for example, if I go into his brand messaging project that he did at the beginning of the year, I can see that he worked with a division of UMass Boston. And what ended up happening is after the project was complete, both parties actually get to evaluate each other. So he got a numerical score, which only serves to go into our system and make everything run more smoothly. But then he also got a testimonial. And this testimonial is a fantastic testament to the work that he does. Nonprofits are going to be the most grateful customer you could have, and their testimonials are epic and fantastic and say a lot. And all Bob needed to do was say, hey, would you mind putting that on my LinkedIn? Or he can link to his Catch a Fire profile on his LinkedIn account or in resumes or wherever he wants to share this information on his social media accounts, however it is that he wants to spread the word. And all of these testimonials are in one place. And that's really fantastic. And, you know, if he wants to put his last name in here and you can make it Google searchable, that's totally fine. It's completely up to you. But really, that's what we want to see, right? We want to see that both parties are getting something out of this experience. Just because it is volunteering does not mean that it shouldn't also benefit you. Everybody should win. And honestly, it makes the nonprofits feel a lot better knowing that you also see something at the end of the day. When I share that people are sometimes using this for portfolio builders, to switch careers, different things like that, to start up a consulting gig that they hadn't thought they could do, that actually makes them feel more comfortable. That like, okay, everybody's getting something. This isn't a handout. We all win. So I wouldn't discourage you. I would actually really say this is something that you should feel comfortable doing. And please feel free. Like if any of you are in a space right now where you're like, I'm looking for next steps. I'm looking to change what I'm doing. I'm looking to consult. This is a great opportunity for that. So I see that there are some questions jumping in. Please feel free to continue to ask questions. I'm happy to address them as we go. I want to show you too, like, what is the next step for you as you start to work with these organizations. And the next step would really be to work with somebody like, let me pull up actually. You know what, let's pull up Kevin. Now, Kevin is somebody who has been working with us for quite some time now. He started working with us as a volunteer in like 2015 and slowly started jumping in 2016. We haven't seen him in a little while, and there's a reason. So in 2016, Kevin started working with Lori's Hands. And Lori's Hands is an organization out of Delaware. It's run out of a college, or started out run out of a college. And the board president and founder posted something online and basically said, what do we do? Like, we want to expand and we don't know how to expand. We don't know where we should go. How do we start? And that's perfect for Kevin. He's been VP of sales. He's been at a lot of different roles where he's had to expand major areas of his business and of businesses that he's worked with. So he was like, all right, let's get on the phone. He had a 1-hour phone call and told Sarah, you are not ready to expand. You're not ready. It's not time. And here's why. And she said, okay, well, what do I need to do in order to be ready? So they started talking through these things. They ended up doing a project together to help her with her fundraising. And what resulted in that was their first ever grant for $150,000, which, as an extra step, Kevin then went and he found a donor to match that amount of money. He found a school that was willing to match that donation. So they ended up with the most money they've ever had as an organization at one time. And the thing they decided to do was hire their first full-time staff member. And that changed the game for this organization. They now actually have expanded nationally, which is amazing to see. It took them a little extra time. But they kept talking to Kevin, and he kept saying, hey, reach out when you need something, and checking in with them and saying, hey, how's everything going? And after a little while, they were like, you know what, we're looking for board members. And now Kevin's on their board. He's still on their board. And that's been a really amazing thing to see. Now, there's a question that came in from Dan who's saying if he sits on a nonprofit board right now, which congrats, thank you very much for sitting on a board. It's more helpful than you know. How do I start a relationship with Catch a Fire to find great volunteers, presumably for that organization? So what we typically recommend, Dan, is that organizations join the site and then reach out to us. So they can join the site just to look around. And sometimes organizations are already being sponsored and they don't even know they have sponsorship, because that individual who's received the sponsorship hasn't shared it with the rest of the organization, or they've been ignoring the emails or whatever else. If they already have membership, we want them to use it. So for example, right now, any organization in New Jersey has had access to Catch a Fire for the past year or so. They just haven't all known that they've had it. Robert Wood Johnson, as a foundation, sponsored the whole state. And that's an amazing thing to see. So I think first step is just to find out if they have it. And if they don't, we'll talk to them about what it would take to become a part of Catch a Fire. Because really the goal is to get everybody sponsored. But if they can't, we'll see what we can figure out for them and what information they would need to know in order to become a part of things. But you can absolutely be a part of one board and help in other organizations at the same time. Now, Larry has a question that came in through a Q&A, which is, how do you find clients, client nonprofits outside of major metropolitan areas? So I'm actually going to show you a feature here that's this show nearby feature. And what happens is if I click this, it's going to show me every opportunity within 30 miles of my location, which let's see, right now has 15 that are just within 30 miles of New York City. So please feel free, if you are looking for local opportunities, you can click that button if you're looking for people near you. Now, if you don't want to find organizations near you, you want to find more rural organizations or ones outside of your space, oh my goodness, by all means, don't click that button, right? Like, look for things outside of that space, and that's fantastic. There's this sort feature called recommended. I could look by most recent, I could look in alphabetical order, but if you search by recommended, it's actually going to show you the organizations that are currently in most desperate need of help. So these are organizations who have been waiting a really long time and nobody's applying, or the talent that they're finding is not matching, or they've been waiting longer than other organizations. So you might find some of those folks just by looking through and sorting by recommended. But once you click on an organization, I'm going to click on Access Pan Am because I don't know the answer to this, it's going to tell you where they're located. So you can actually see that this organization is in Jackson, Wyoming. Now, I can see that there is, oh, Larry's got some clarification, thank you. How do the nonprofits find us? Yes. So Larry, typically what happens is that we are working with foundations in those areas. So like, for example, in Hawaii that I mentioned, we have a lot of organizations in Hawaii. That's because there's 2 foundations that are in Hawaii as well who have sponsored all of these organizations. So hundreds of organizations come on our platform because the foundations have identified them. And it's nice to see the foundations identify them because it allows them to vet those organizations for, are they ready? Are they ready to work with us? Are they 501c3s? Are they at that level? And so it's actually been really nice to work with foundations. We've been partnering with them for a few years to identify these organizations because it's getting the quality there for all of you as volunteers. So you'll see that in, for example, we get a lot in Atlanta, but then we also see, just like we work with St. Paul, Minnesota, we also have all the other parts of Minnesota as well. We're now working with Michigan. But we're not just working with Detroit or just working with Grand Rapids. We're working with organizations all across Michigan. So a lot of the foundations that we work with agree that they would really like to touch other areas that they won't necessarily be able to spend as much time with. Looks like Colin has a question about using the LinkedIn profile. He wants to know what exactly we will do through LinkedIn. Nothing would be the answer to that. LinkedIn has like very difficult features for us on our end in terms of customizing. So if you sign in with your LinkedIn profile, will we post anything on your behalf? No, we will not. The site just allows you to post through our site. So as you can see, like there's some features on here where you can share this project and things like that, but we wouldn't post without you specifically posting. So we leave that entirely to you. We don't mess with your pages because it's not our space. And if other questions come up like that, like please feel free to ask us. We're always happy to clarify anything around our terms of service, around our privacy. The same questions come up around what about the organization's privacy, which I always love when people are thinking about our organizations and making sure that things are confidential. If you have forms that normally a client would fill out in order to start working together, as long as they're not saying, pay me, which you should not be doing, you can absolutely have organizations fill out those forms. So if you normally do like a statement of work where you have a contract together, you can have them fill that out with you and go through that process. If you are normally somebody who in the work that you do, you would be signing an NDA or a confidentiality agreement, talk to them. They would probably really appreciate you ensuring that level of privacy. Now, Sergio is wondering if we are limited to the US or if we work with other countries. We work with other countries on both sides. So volunteers can come from anywhere, and that's absolutely fine. We're happy to work with volunteers from any country. Our organizations are often very happy to work with volunteers across time zones. I'd say just keep an eye on time zones. Sometimes they can get a little tricky. And then the other piece of that would be for the nonprofits themselves. So we have definitely been expanding our nonprofit spaces outside of the US. So the places where you are most likely to find organizations now are, we have quite a few coming in from the UK. We have a lot in particularly sub-Saharan Africa. There's a lot of countries that are being represented right now through 2 different partnerships that we are working with. One being the Siegel Family Foundation, who are fantastic. And so you'll see a lot of organizations there. We actually have a couple in Australia that have started popping up through a corporate relationship. So they're coming in and you'll see them more and more. Just make sure you know where they are as you go to schedule phone calls, which is something that you'll do through our platform. You'll be able to see what the time zone differences are. You'll be able to see if it's an international call. Our system will just let you two connect and share phone numbers that way. If it's a local call between 2 parties that are both located in the US, we actually have a way for our system to call both parties. So you don't give out your phone number to anybody. Everything remains confidential with your information. It's something where you are now able to just hop on the phone whenever it's convenient for you. So in terms of next steps and what I would recommend, and then I'll kind of wrap things up for additional questions. Really, I would say just try it. Like, it's something where you want to post a couple of responses. Like, you want to apply to a few things at a time. Because some organizations are going to take a little longer to respond. Some organizations might be looking for something very randomly specific. We have organizations on our platform doing everything from, like, we have quite a few different CASAs, court-appointed social advocates for children, that are popping up all over the place. But then at the same time, we have had an organization on our platform that looked out for one very specific type of potato. So you name it, there is a cause for it, and it is on our platform. So, you know, sit tight if you're not seeing exactly what you're looking for. If you're not seeing the specific projects you're looking for, try adding in a couple additional skills and seeing if maybe we're just seeing things a little bit differently. And from there, the relationships are really yours. So you get started. I would recommend keeping things to the platform as much as you can, because you're going to want to keep track. And if we don't know you're working with the volunteer, we can't help you if something isn't working. But you know, you want to become more involved, you want to join their board, you want to get a job with them, you want to, I mean, we've been waiting for a Catch a Fire wedding for a really long time. We haven't seen one. So, you know, whatever it is that you create a relationship, that is yours. And we are so happy for you to do that. Our only ask is that you tell us. So if you found a really amazing, amazing relationship with a nonprofit and you've started to do more work with them, we'd love to hear about it. We feature volunteers regularly to other volunteers, but also to our nonprofits to show them, like, these are really amazing, legitimate professionals on our site. Like, you can get some real strategic help. And sometimes organizations are a little scared to ask for big strategic help until they realize the caliber of individuals who volunteer through Catch a Fire. And once they see that, it's like, oh, there's all these other things I need help with. So if you're doing really great work on our site, we want to feature you. We want to tell everybody what it is that you're doing. So just tell us. It's help@catchafire.org. Nehemiah is just going to keep throwing that into the chat. Just let us know. We always want those stories. I mean, the work that you are doing on our site when you join is, like, I can't say enough about how grateful these organizations really are. And, you know, if you're ever wondering if your work is really making a difference, like, they will tell you. They will tell you repeatedly how important it is to them and what a difference it makes to them. So I'm so excited that all of you have joined this webinar and have really taken the time and the effort to see that, like, your work is important and you're going to be contributing to something that's really going to make a difference at the end of the day for an organization. So thank you for recognizing that your talents can really go towards making a lot of good happen for organizations. And we're always available to you if you have additional questions. So I'm going to turn things over to Jessica. I know she's still jumping in case there's any specific questions, but otherwise we're going to stay on the line for a little longer too in case some additional things come up. But thank you all for being here. Jessica, you on the line?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for presenting that information, and to all of our Patina Nation members on the call, thank you for joining. I'm just going to quickly switch over to sharing my screen with you all. And go to this slide. So if you would all do us a favor after the event today and fill out a post-event survey, it helps us for planning future events for you all. Visit patinanation.com for more offerings as a member of the organization. And then also, if you're interested in volunteering your talents, visit catchafire.org. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marissa.
This has been a presentation of the Patina Nation. To watch more content like this or for more information, please visit us online at www.patinanation.com.